All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 8 of the MC Events podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joey Capollo, joined by Gilan.
Hello, I'm Gilan.
We're going to be talking in this episode about social media presence for your event, as well as just general marketing and how to show it off. As most of you know who've watched before, I'm the current owner of Block Wars as well as Capollo Media, so I know a little something about how to promote an event. And Gilan.
I actually don't. I just look at the tweets. So yeah, that's my experience. I'm not actually in charge of any of that.
That is not Gilan's role. He's a developer, but he will also give us some insight, when from a viewer perspective of seeing all these events, what makes certain ones stand out. So the first place and easiest place to start when you think about the social media presence of your event is with Twitter. Obviously, Twitter is going through a lot of changes at the moment, and we don't know what it'll look like in the coming months. But even though we're going to talk about it as Twitter, this could be any social media platform that you want to use to promote your event, and the same kind of things apply. The other places that's common to help promote your event is on a Discord server, whether that's a public one, likely a public Discord server for the event, but also the private one that you keep then to do everything, and then as well for a YouTube channel where you have your videos and streams about your event. So Gilan, what's kind of the first thing you need to keep in mind for telling everybody about your event?
Well, I think the most important thing, the main reason that people post stuff, and most of the posts you see about Minecraft events, it's usually just like, here's the date and time of the event, because you want to make sure that both the contestants and the viewers are aware of when the event is, so that people can see, oh, it's that Saturday at that time. I'm going to set aside time to watch it. I know my favorite, my favorite streamer is going to be streaming at that time, so I'm going to set aside that time. So announcing date and times is probably the main reason that you have some sort of account that's managing all that. But when you are making those posts, it is very important to specify time zone, because you have people probably all around the world wanting to tune in and watch. I know, I think it was the most recent, not the most recent MCC, but the most recent actual canon MCC was one of those where if you're in the US and you have daylight savings time, the time got shifted weirdly because Europe doesn't jump forward late. They don't do it till later. So they did in their tweet, I think, mentioned hey, by the way, it's different time zones depending on where you are. So it's very important. If you're using Discord, there's a special feature built in that'll automatically change the time. I think it's Unix timestamp, I believe it's called. And you can go online and find a thing that'll generate it for you, and you can put in when it is, and it'll have a bunch of nice stuff like that. So yeah, scheduling is one of the main reasons that you make these posts.
Yes, and the whole point of it is that you're telling everybody when the event is, so they can start getting excited for it. But to do that, you need to make sure you're announcing it at a time that makes sense. If my event, we're recording this on in April 3rd right now, so the day before it'll go out. But if our event was on, April 30th, I don't want to announce back in January. That's when the event would be. Instead, it should be 2 to 3 weeks out, maybe 4 at most. So you have it's still fresh in people's mind and they know when to look forward to it. Because their real goal is just building hype for the event, getting people excited with this initial announcement. As well, you can kind of pair the announcement with, a video or a teaser of some kind. But we'll talk about more about that in a minute, because I think the first thing that Gilan and I have harped on so many times when we look at these things is that when you announce teams, often if you look at the MCC approach, it's the 4 players and their little team graphic, and then it ats them, says this is when they're playing. It's very, standardized at this point. We all know what I'm describing. But you also see all the smaller events be doing the same thing, to the point where it feels like my timeline is just team announcements for 10 different events that all look kind of the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of, it kind of makes sense, because it is a nice, just simple way to basically tell people hey, you recognize, your favorite, YouTuber streamer's profile picture in a post, and you can look at that and notice, hey, yeah, I'm interested in this now. But if you see it over and over and over again, especially, it might be different for some people, because of course our Twitter timelines have figured out that we like Minecraft events, so you see it much more than usual. But it can start being a bit, if that's repeated a lot, it makes sense why people do it. But if you have a different way, an idea for a different way to do it, I'd definitely go for it.
Yeah, because for example, for this past weekend, there was Scuffed MCC or MCC Scuffed, whichever way you want to say it. There was Pandora's Box, Minecraft Mayhem, and Crown Quest. 4 events, and that all, I'm pretty sure, use similar-esque team announcement graphics.
Yeah.
And so my timeline, I was like, wait, which event is this? Which event is that? I'm not sure what all the things going on. It's hard to keep track then. And so the reason we say this is because there's no reason to copy that format when there are other ways to be creative and kind of show off. The one I think we've talked about in a previous episode was the Pizza Hut gaming one, where it was like more like a 3D render where they just put the skin players in and their skins doing something that was like matching the Pizza Hut thing.
And yeah, I mean, I think one of the other advantages of the posting profile pics is it's a very easy to make and replace thing. For every event, you could just replace the photo there. I mean, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if for MCC, they just have a database of everyone's profile pictures and they reuse the same one. Like they just copy paste over into a new Photoshop document. But I think if you're a smaller event and you're wanting to stand out, and because for a lot of smaller events, hopefully getting new people to see it on Twitter might be a great way for to build up a viewing audience. It might be worth trying to look into a different way to do it.
Yeah. For example, MC Wipeout had the 3 players standing in front of the finish line or starting line, whichever line, just as a 3D render, and every team graphic was the same. It was just the different 3 players of the team, but that definitely stood out because the colors were different, the composition was different compared to the typical team announcements where they're all 4 in squares or all 5 in squares, and you just know what to expect. Instead, it was like their whole skins and whole bodies being shown, and it just stood out a lot more. But the point is, be creative, like go wild with it, especially for if you're trying to stand out. The best way to stand out is to look unique rather than just look like you're the off-brand MCC in any way, or a one that like can't quite match that level of like polish that those graphics have. Instead, go on and do your own custom ones, and that's gonna look so much better. We'll talk more still about trailer and teaser when we get to it, but the other thing to talk about is talking about being professional on your posts and the things you post as the event page. It's really good, usually very beneficial, to assign one person to be the social media person if there's a team of you, and just have them, have them then be aware of, the things they're supposed to be replying to, what kind of level of professionalism they should talk with and tone, because you don't want to be like making rude jokes with that kind of account. You don't want to be making fun of people. Instead, that brand account, in some sense the event account, should kind of just be professional and telling people what's happened, building hype for the event, and just being overall pretty positive.
Yeah, and I also want to add that it might be a good idea for a lot of those accounts to kind of treat them as an announcement account and not like a discussion account. And what I mean by that is I would say avoid replying, especially to other tweets. If maybe like someone, I mean, you see this in like MCC's Twitter. If someone replies to one of the team announcements with something, the Twitter, they might respond to that. But like browsing Twitter on that account and looking for people who are mentioning and like doing that might not be the best idea, because it kind of takes away that professional look when it starts seeming more like a person who's just using it as their account and less as like a front face for the actual, I guess, group or company that's running it.
Yeah, it also gets to a point where that would like flood people's timelines or whatever it is. And it'd be the case of it'd be better if they only saw the post that, the day of announcement stuff, and they see the replies. So those replies help them make sure they see announcement that day, because they being put in their timeline more times. Whereas if you're replying to other random things, people are like, why is an event replying to whatever this is? Obviously, there are exceptions. Don't like not reply to anything because you're scared. But for the most part, it's good to keep it kind of focused in on what the account is tweeting out and what it's doing. As well, for like, this is going to be a little different in terms of being professional. Like within your public Discord, you want somebody who's like the social media manager of the community, whether it's moderators, whether it's somebody in charge of the mods, but somebody whose job is like make sure, everything in there is going, it has a positive environment to it and a supportive place, where it's not, your fans of the event complaining about things or complaining about certain players. in ways that are just rude. Like you want to make sure you're managing that, ensuring that there's a good community being built up.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's the same for YouTube. I think, like, if Joey run MCC the show, you might have multiple people who have access to the YouTube account to help posting videos because sometimes people aren't available to actually post something. You might have multiple people editing stuff. But it's the same with YouTube of having people who are kind of assigned to control that, and also making sure that if you're ever replying to a YouTube comment, you're not being rude on that same channel. That same idea.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's just the case that you want to make sure you're being as, kind of supportive and positive and helping make that community stay that way and keep it a place that people want to join and be a part of. Moving on to talk about trailers and teasers. Finally, the first thing we're going to say is I said a little previously, which is don't announce things too early. Like, it's great to build up hype for your event, but if you announce your teaser in like January and then nothing happens till like June or later, you just kind of wasted the hype that you generated from your first thing. To call out Gilan's favorite example of this, our friend Hightail, the game.
No, they didn't announce too early. They just
did.
released too late. I'm just kidding.
Not this obviously isn't quite the same thing because they got so much hype around their game that they announced that then it was able to get them more funding and they're able to like go bigger with it.
Mm-hmm.
But they had enough done where that was possible. You wouldn't be able to do that if you're announcing just a teaser and you've barely you've made one game for your like 5-game event and you're like, we'll totally have it done in 2 months, and then it gets pushed back by a ton.
Yeah, I will say we've seen events on Twitter that were announced and they've never happened. Or we've seen like people have like, they push about like, hey, we're gonna start working on this, and then you just never hear from them again, and like it kind of fades away. That's happened a lot of times in the micro event space because I mean, it's really hard to make an event. It takes a lot of time and work. A lot of people don't know how much work it's going to take. It's kind of like making a game because it is. It's like making a game where a lot of people don't really understand how much work it is until they really go and do it. So you don't really want to get a bunch of people to, number one, you don't want people who, you don't want to let people down, but also you don't want people like messaging or nagging you all the time, like, hey, what's happening? What's happening? You don't want to have to deal with that. It's nice to have that pressure taken off.
Yes, it's a case of once you announce it, you've now generated expectations, and you now have to live up to those expectations. And if those are unrealistic expectations, well, then you're going to let a lot of people down, and it's just going to have an overall net negative on the event and people's perception of it. So it's better to err on the side of caution and like start doing your teasers, announcements, all those things when you are 100% confident, like where you're at in progress, and you're ensuring that everything will be done.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it's time to announce your trailer or teaser, we're going to talk, there's kind of two different things in a way. Your teaser can be just like an image. It can be like event coming soon, puts a graphic. The trailer is going to be like, hey, this is a bunch of shots, or this is a bunch of cool things happening for the games or for the event. And this is kind of what to expect. And while it's great to have them be like super high quality and make them look awesome, they don't have to be. Like with just a little bit of gameplay of like, testers playing the games and then a little bit of replay mod footage to, emphasize it. So it's not just first person. It can look really cool really easily.
Yeah, I think replay mod is the big thing here. You can make if you spend some time with it, some tutorials how to use replay mod, or if you just find someone who's used it before, you can make some really cool things. Like if you've watched MCC's update videos and you see a lot of like the shots of when, you see people playing the games and it's kind of like, it almost looks like a third person camera, kind of like watching from afar. You can kind of create stuff that looks like that. And while, an event like MCC can pay to have Spark Universe animate a fully, I think for MCC Island, they had that like fully animated teaser. That's not, really, most people can't really do that. So it's better just to like basically make what would be an MCC update, like an MCC update video type of quality thing. Yeah. Like if you can aim for that as a trailer, a lot of people would be pretty hyped if they see your game, like just your games in action, and just being able to understand like, okay, what is this event going to be? What's it going to look like? That kind of idea.
For sure. And just adding like a little bit of editing, timing some of the cuts with some cool music really quickly. It's like, oh, this looks hype. This looks really fun. But really just for the trailer and teaser, it's best to post it once you know when your first event's going to be, even if it's like 6 months off, but you're like 100% confident it'll happen. I wouldn't say post it immediately, but if you were that confident, you could then post the teaser to start building hype for it. Because the teaser would be like just one graphic or like a short 10-second clip maybe. Whereas the trailer is when it's like, all right, date announcement for first event or the next event coming up.
Yeah.
That's what the trailer's kind of for.
Yeah, the idea would be like at the end of the trailer, the last screen of the trailer has the date written out. Like that would be, I mean, you see that all the time. Like when movies come out, they always end with the date, like when it's coming out. So that's probably, you could basically treat the trailer as a really hype date announcement instead of just a post on Twitter that says event coming out this day.
Mm-hmm. And then as well, just be creative. Same thing we said for team announcements. Like the cooler you make this trailer, the more hype and you're going to generate for the event at the beginning. And it's really easy to then get more people invested if you have a strong foundation and a strong, already excitement built up for what the event's going to entail. And so the more you can do with this kind of first thing of making it exciting, the more excited people are going to be for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then moving on to if you're going to have an event that happens, multiple times, such as Block Wars, MCC, Pandora's Box, Ground Quest, all the ones we know, you're going to have to make update videos likely, because not only do they say, the changes that are being made for the games for between events, but they also remind, the audience like, hey, the event's like soon. Watch this and remember, how to play and what to look out for.
I think the big thing for the update videos, I think you should always just look at MCC's update videos because they make really nice, just concise update videos that go over things. You can probably, I don't say copy that format, but use a similar format because it's efficient and you're just trying to get basic ideas over. But it should be short. You shouldn't try to make a long thing. It should be the kind of thing that doesn't take a lot of work to make. You just might have someone who's you just might have a commentator going over like, okay, here's kind of the new things, cut to some shots of some testers playing the most recent games to kind of show off the new features for that event. And I think, as always, think about the fact that your event is probably always growing and they're always new. You're probably always having new contestants involved, new viewers are watching. So try to explain things in a way that is like attainable by a normal audience. Like maybe like explain like, here's this new feature we added, and like here's a reminder of how the game kind of goes and with this new feature. Because update videos will also basically act as a mini trailer and will get people hyped. I mean, I will say that when I see the MCC update video that right before MCC, like right the day before MCC, like it gets me happy and looking forward to watching the next MCC.
Mm-hmm. It's the case of not only should it be like informational and kind of easy to follow, but it also should be exciting because you're going to see these new changes and new things coming to the event. And so you want to see how they're going to play out. There's also the case to, make highlights of your event afterwards. This can be done in a variety of different ways, whether they just be currently what Block Wars does, which is the best moments videos, instead of the top 10 videos that like MCC the show does about MCC. And I would say as the event itself, when you're trying to make highlights, you don't want to kind of be judging the plays. Like the reason we moved away in Block Wars from the top 10 is because then it feels like the event is kind of biased when it picks who had the better play, versus when you just do the best moments, you can show all the fun things that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having conversations after MCCs when we were making the top 10s when I was still doing some writing for MCC the show. And every time like you'd go in the comments and there would be a comment that's like, I can't believe that like all 10 weren't Dream or something.
Yes.
And like, because that's the thing, the big thing with top 10s, like that is kind of the format that a lot of things are in, but it just causes controversy a lot of times and people get angry about it. So I would encourage, if people do want to do something like that, they go the path of just show some highlights. There's some cool stuff. Everyone's happy. Don't rank them.
Yes. It's just easier to do it that way. Like MCC has their highlights for the Twitter that, is part of the team, like end of team announcements also on MCC day. Block Wars also does a similar thing. And the reason you do that is because it's just, here's a quick little bite-sized reminder of why this event's fun. Get ready to watch the next one. It's pretty simple. It's straightforward. And like you can also do that and put it like on your event's YouTube channel and other places where it can be seen. And it just helps, grow your community, grow an audience that's not only watching the event live, but also wants to check out the event, after it happens. It's a thing I've said in the past. We've had this discussion about like MCC / the Nox Crew of like they could make more things that show off the event. That would be really cool to see, or show off the highlights of the event, because if you have access to the server when it's going on, you can take replay mod footage. Then you have all the maps, so you could also do like go back and get stuff for analysis if you want to analyze games. You could get a lot to just show it off in a different way that would then be able to make people excited for the different things that could happen within the event.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that Bitzel video.
We all are, but don't ask him for it on Twitter. Do not ever do that.
Do not. No.
We will come after you if you do that.
Every time you ask him, he delays it by a week.
That's true. And it's been asked a lot.
It's been asked a lot, so it's probably not going to be for about a decade.
It's really not, but that's okay. We trust in the Bitzel. But regardless, like the videos, trailers, whatever things you're going to make to show off the event, like they can be done in your own style. It's great if they match the theming of the event. It's great if they're consistent in terms of like who's commentating or who's talking about it, because it's just a way to ensure your audience is interested on days where the event's not happening, because obviously if the event is live, well, it can't be every day. But then moving on from that, there's a bunch of tips we could say for how to make managing social media stuff easier. One of the easiest ones is you can schedule tweets. You can also there are probably ways to have a bot set up on your Discord server to announce things for you at certain times, so then you're not doing it.
Actually, you can have a bot. I know Blockworks has one that just puts the tweets in a channel. So you can tweet something, and then the Discord bot will also put it in a channel, and people will be alerted of it.
Mm-hmm. And there's just easy ways to ensure you're not stressing as much on the day of all the things you have to do. One of the things we made on the back end for Block Wars is it's a little spreadsheet I put together that has all the current roster, their name, their Twitter handle, and their Minecraft username. And then I can fill in the blanks for this is the Scarlet team, this is the Orange team. And then it'll auto-fill the tweet to say, this team, all these people are playing on this day. And I copy-paste the tweet. So then I don't have to worry about, accidentally typoing somebody's name because their Twitter handle is a capital or a lowercase L or a capital I instead of a lowercase L like JoJo Solos.
Mm-hmm. You mean Soyos?
It's just a case where there's ways to like help automate it, so you're not feeling pressured to always, worry about human error in the ways you could just mess up that would cause issues.
Yeah, this is definitely a section where if you are a person who's like, okay, I'm building a team of people, it's like, and I don't really have any skills related to programming or art or something, the social media area is where the manager's job comes in, where it's like your job is to try to make things efficient and get things done and manage the times and all that. This is one of those that's one of those categories. That's kind of what Joey works on a lot.
I do it a lot, let me tell you. That is my main role as owner, organizer, project lead, whatever term you want to say it counts as, but it's a lot of just ensuring all the little things in the background get put together that need to happen to running an event, that aren't just developing the games or making the builds. It's like ensuring the update videos out, ensuring the update videos released at the right time, ensuring we have our tweets ready and the team announcement photos all there. Like there's a lot of all these little minor details that the bigger your team gets, the more things you have to do, the more work it is then to manage them all. And then the other tip we'll say is, especially, I mean, you're on a brand account, if you will, you're on your events account. It's not great to get into arguments with that account because it seems like a faceless entity of the event is arguing with somebody, and it just never comes across very well in comparison to just if there's something you need to discuss, doing it from your personal account instead and just offering an explanation of that.
Yeah.
Because sadly, there likely will be something that goes wrong in your event in some way. The reason I say it's likely, it's because MCC's had a number and they're about the highest level of professionalism you can get. and they've had things go wrong. And the ways of which to respond to that just needs to be done in ways that are thoughtful and ensuring that you're not fanning the fires, and instead, listening and learning and acknowledging, what could be improved.
Yeah, I think in the future we'll probably have either episode or cover in an episode talking about like what do you do when things go wrong. That's been a topic that we might eventually go over.
Mm-hmm.
But the basic idea is that arguing with people isn't going to help. It just makes you look worse because in this case, you're the big entity and they're just the small person arguing with you. So it's just much better to, we'd go over this in another episode, but to just plan out what you're going to say. And maybe if something did go wrong, you just make one post about it and say like, here's what we did, and that's it, and just kind of cut it off there.
Yeah.
If you think about, I think Noxite has made when things did go really badly wrong, he just made one post and said, he's not replying to anything else. He said, here's what it is, here's how it went. If people are actually interested in what went wrong and thinking about it, they'll read that and hopefully they're happy with that. If not, they're just looking for an argument.
Mm-hmm. It's a case where you should cater to your overall audience and not cater to the angriest people on the site. And so ensuring that, address whatever happened and make sure, here's how we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. But after that, kind of be like, we can't placate you anyway, and that we can't run back the event. We can't reset everything and do it again. Some things just happen, and that's just something, you got to take the responsibility for and be able to learn and move past from.
I think you just have to back up and think about the fact that most events are just for fun. It's just content creators getting a chance to create content, viewers having a fun experience. And I mean, with MCC, it's like you win, you get a piece of metal mailed to you, and your fans are happy.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't really giant rewards. Hopefully, in most MCCs, even the losers have fun. That's kind of the goal. The goal is just to have fun. And most events people are creating, unless you are, I mean, we went over this, but unless you are creating a competitive event, good luck on that.
Very different thing, though.
Unless you're creating a competitive event, your event's just meant to be fun and for people to have fun. So I think that should be made clear.
Yep. And this is where we're going to wrap it up. It's going to be a shorter episode because social media stuff is a lot of, individual cases of what to do. I think next week, Gilan, rather than a guest, I want to do that recommendation that came to our Twitter from Merc, recommending that we watch one of the events that was played. Let me check my Twitter to remember what event it was. But I'm going to cut down the footage to something viewable, and then we'll be watching it together and giving our thoughts on how it was. This would be from, it's called PET, P-E-T. Let me find out what it actually stands for real quick, because it feels weird to call an event just PET.
Is the P for Polish?
I do think it is a non-English event. I'd have to check. I can't tell just from the quick look. We'll make sure to know what it is when we're watching it come next week. But it'll be mine and Gilan's reactions to it. We'll watch along. It'll be cut down to be shorter than the full event. And we'll give you, our thoughts on it. What's done well, what could be improved in some ways, but we're going to make sure it stays very constructive because we're going to acknowledge that, it was a lot of work to put together regardless, and we're impressed that they did it. So we'll see everyone next time.
Bye.